Do you think the bully pulpit is sort of a use it or lose it thing? Because Obama's been really reluctant to use it, and now nobody has any faith in him anymore. Not nobody. There's still people that do, but
I think that's right.
Well, he hasn't really been communicating much. I mean, except in structured ways. He's had very few press conferences, and that was one of the things that I was hoping was going to increase quite a bit in his administration. But once again, it's something that mirrors the tendencies of his predecessor. I think that I don't know what to do about him at this point, because
in what aspect does he not mirror the tendencies of his predecessor apart from complete sentences?
I think there are some ways. I mean, he has some willingness to open up the government coffers to try to, help people. But I mean, I agree. I mean, it is fairly limited.
Bush had a much stronger presidency, I think. At least so far.
Oh, yeah.
He got what he wanted done.
Yeah, stronger we're talking about in strength, not quality, of course.
Well, yeah.
Well, but I think it's also interesting in the sense that Obama hasn't had anything that kind of re-upped for him after his initial problems. Because, before 9/11, the Bush administration was just totally directionless. I mean, they were losing steam. And it was being anticipated at that point that they were going to have a hard time putting their agenda across. But it was mostly the way they used 9/11 to their advantage that allowed them to, create the imperial presidency of Bush.
I actually think that there's a possibility that they were waiting for something like that to happen. I mean, it didn't have to be necessarily 9/11. It could have been, an increased number of rocket attacks on Israel or some sort of. But they were looking for, I think the Bush presidency was waiting for some kind of bludgeon they could use to disfigure the American democracy. And then along came 9/11.
Right. They needed an excuse to do what they wanted to do anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that.
As to the question of what we should do regarding President Obama, what do we do now? Well, I think we just have to let him go. I think that a lot of us progressives sort of hang on to this sort of thread of hope that he'll sort of resurrect his campaign platform, or that, or they hang on to this resentment. And I think we just have to treat him like just, an object. We have to bypass him. We have to see that he's going to do what he's going to do. So let's ask him the gotcha questions. Let's expose his policies. Let's go to our Congress. Let's get them to pass things and override his vetoes. I think we have to treat him like he's, not on our side or on any side. He's just...
At least not automatically on our side.
Right. He's an impediment.
And it's never a good idea to just hope for things.
Exactly. And that's how he sort of seduced the country. He was like, "Oh, don't worry, I got it, guys."
Well, and I think he, had a take on all these problems. It's not like he hasn't been working. He has been working. But he'll continue to do stuff no matter how weak he is politically. So I don't know. I mean, I think you're right in a philosophical way. I mean, I think philosophically we should assume that he's never going to do anything that's particularly useful to the progressive agenda.
Well, at least not without pressure.
But yeah, we can't disengage because, I mean, I think if anything, if the more progressives disengage, the more he'll feel free to just kind of follow his natural tendencies, which are center-right. And I mean, I think it's unquestionably the case that they're center-right tendencies.
Well, that's what I mean. I think progressives have thus far been disengaged because of the hopes they've pinned on Obama or the disappointment they felt when he hasn't received them. It's like an unhealthy relationship.
Or maybe we just seem disengaged because we don't have a voice.
Oh yeah, that too.
But that's just depressing. Okay, so point for point, guys. Um, how much would you say that Obama appealed to the right in this speech versus to the left?
Well, as you pointed out, there was a lot of talk about like competitiveness, appealing to our competitive nature, and you know the whole fiscal responsibility thing, talking about tax cuts, you know, commitment to the military. Those are all, you know, fairly conservative talking points.
There were really only a couple places where he even appealed to the left, I thought, in calling out, or in pretending to call out the Democrats a little bit for, needing to get off their asses. I think that's maybe the one part where he appealed to the left, and then the rest of the speech was mostly appealing to the idea of center of common sense, and then occasionally footballs tossed to the right.
Now, I felt like there were a lot of apologies to the left, but not a lot of, don't worry, I really am going to do better. And when there was, I didn't really, believe it necessarily. I mean, it's just gotten to the point where we can't believe words. We have to believe action, I think.
It's an unhealthy relationship. He's like the guy who treats their girlfriend like a jerk. And his girlfriend is a progressive wing. And they just keep coming back for more.
Yeah, I've heard apparently Obama girl is a little bit disappointed as well. I mean, I actually looked, I was thinking about doing like an Obama girl 1 year later video, And I never actually watched the video, but I had heard about it, so I looked up the lyrics and stuff, and I realized that she only actually talks about policy for like one of the lines, like one verse in the whole song, and all the stuff that she, the two or three things that she mentioned are pretty much out the window, like universal health care coverage. Out the window, or should I say under the bus?
Ah, the optimism of those heady days.
Yeah, I had to find her video because I used a clip of her ass in one of my videos.
I think a lot of what was going on, by the way, in this speech, from a psychological perspective, was that he was trying to work on identification and trying to get people to identify with him and the struggles that he's going through as the leader. I think that's where some of the folksy, anecdotes and the humor came out. Trying to.
Well, the folksy anecdotes are a tradition in the State of the Union address.
They are a tradition, but I mean, I think in this one, I think Obama is trying to work hard to humanize himself a little bit more, to not seem so distant, not seem like he's so out of touch, and that's what identification strategies are after. I'm like you, you can trust me.
He might have succeeded too. I think he might have succeeded in that. I think because I think somebody who's not well informed, who's approaching things from a sort of I'm an independent standpoint, might have watched that speech and gone, yeah, I see where he's coming from. He seems like a sensible, common sense guy.
Well, I think to believe Obama at this point, you have to be kind of disconnected from current events enough to continue to think that because he says it, that means it's going to happen.